Happy Sunday, everyone. We hope you're having a great weekend. We are happy to announce that we are back with #RisingQuestions, where we answer your questions right here. And I have no idea what they are, so let's get into it.
All right.
Oh, boy.
First question. This one's from Cheyenne, mostly for Ryan Grimm. Do you think if Biff and BBB were one big bill like they intended, they both would have been bigger and easier to pass? I think that yes, and I think that is precisely why Manchin, and with the help of McConnell and other Republicans, cleaved off this 1.2 trillion, which actually some of that is annual spending. It was actually only about 550 billion of new spending. So they hoped that they could take the roads and bridges part, the part that all sides agreed they need to do at some point, and throw in some broadband and some other popular things. They hoped that they could pass that, and that would drain all of the energy away from the rest of the package. Progressives hoped that they would not succeed at that and would have to keep them together. Once they did come up with a deal, that's when progressives said, well, we're doing these on two tracks, which actually was Schumer that originally came up with this two-track idea. Like, we're only going to support this if you give us the other one. So I think that actually, yes, because Manchin, and Sinema very desperately wanted this kind of traditional roads and bridges stuff. So their ability to cleave it off was, effective.
Do you think they're going to pass the other bill?
I still think they will. There's a lot of pessimism out there, and Manchin is saying the same things that he's been saying for months, that inflation's a big problem. We need a pause. But I also think that there are a lot of things in there that Manchin does want. He wants to see the corporate tax rate increase. He thought that was too low. He didn't like some of the Trump tax cut. He didn't like the way that he was treated personally by McConnell during the Trump tax cuts, and a lot of this is about ego. And also Manchin, has told his colleagues that he's not going to blow up the Biden presidency by taking this down. So I think something will pass, but I think it'll be much, much weakened, from what it otherwise would have been if it were still combined with the infrastructure bill.
A lot smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. But I think it'll be knocked down a lot.
All right, next question. Kim, you want to take this one?
All right, it says here, this is from Christina Swin. The media and health agencies seem surprised at the waning efficacy of the vaccines. Is the exact reason everyone was concerned about the amount of data and lack of long-term clinical trials. Has anyone admitted this should have been known and or shared with the public? So, yeah, there's a lot of now, the ever-changing the landscape is causing people to say, well, see, we wanted to wait and see. And now, here we are waiting and seeing, and we're seeing something different. And so, I don't know. It's a tough one. Look, I don't fault anybody for wanting to rush treatments or vaccines or anything out there. I think in a pandemic, when people are dying, personally, you try anything and everything. And I've always been a big advocate personally of throw everything at this sucker, throw it all. Like, let's not demonize anything. Let's just see how everything goes, but also be honest about it and say, we don't know. And that, I feel like that lack of we don't know has been very much missing from the conversation, from news and from medical professionals. And then that's why there's this changing, and then that causes even more, mistrust from the public, is because they say they know, and then they later have to change, rather than just right up front saying, we don't know, but we're trying. We're trying everything. We're trying to save lives.
Yeah, and the officials are reluctant to concede when they don't know for sure, because they don't want to, cause people to doubt the whole process. They even got me at first when they were like, oh yeah, that natural immunity though, we don't know about that. And I'm like, well, they say they don't really know about it. And then they're still saying that, even though the data's coming out and it's clear that the natural immunity is pretty good, is akin to the vaccine. Maybe it's not quite as good. Maybe it's better. It's somewhere in the ballpark, in the neighborhood. And it took them so long. They've scarcely admitted that still. So it's very telling. All right, last question here. Why is there no talk about nuclear when sustainable energy is brought up? Isn't it an important and consistent piece of the puzzle? I think it is. I think there's, no way to escape the fact that nuclear is part of this conversation. Of course, it's very costly, very difficult because of the regulatory burden and also because of the potential liability issues for nuclear. This is the only kind of power where if you get it wrong, you really get it wrong, and like end of world get it wrong. So I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, Ryan.
Well, yeah, and to me, if you can, in a safe and cost-effective way, extend the life of nuclear power plants that are already going, so that you can continue to get the clean energy that you've already spent the time to build the plant. It's already up and running. It's creating the waste anyway. If you can extend that safely as we transition fully into clean renewable energy, then I think you should do that. I think you don't hear more about it when it comes to confronting climate change, rapidly and at scale. Is that it just doesn't scale. It's not cost effective compared to expanding out wind, solar, hydro, and that's before you get to all of the other questions. But it takes now 7 to 8 years to get a project off the ground. And you could say, well, some of that is red tape. On the other hand, how much red tape do you want to cut when you're talking about a nuclear power plant? This is not something where you really want Homer Simpson, screwing that up because of all the lives that are at stake. And you can't scale it globally because so many countries don't. You think our government's corrupt? Like, so many countries do not have governments in place that you could remotely trust to regulate a nuclear power plant, nor do they have kind of the engineering base in place that you need to effectively scale this. You would need something like 2,000 new nuclear power plants over the next 10 years. And I think we're on pace to build a dozen or two globally. So it's just nobody takes it seriously as a near term or even medium term solution to what is a present day crisis. Now, could there be massive advances in the technology with new types of plants? Sure, and that should be researched, but that's kind of a long-term thing.
Yeah. But I bet there is red tape you could find.
I'm sure there's some.
Eliminate.
I'm sure.
For the mandatory diversity training for the nuclear engineers, right?
You could trim that, and maybe it goes from 7 years on average to 6.5.
Yeah. I know. There's some pretty long diversity training sessions.
And as South Carolina, which spent a decade and spent $8 billion and has zip, nothing but higher rates. They had a hole in the ground, and they've since filled the hole in and just completely given up. It's a complete mess. When you talk to people who've actually gone through lately trying to build a plant, they don't work. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, that does it for us, and we'll be back next week to answer more of your questions. So don't forget to tweet at us at Rising using the hashtag RisingQs so we don't miss any of your questions, comments, or concerns, and we'll address them next time. Thank you so much.